You know, we trust people with our most private selves online. But what happens when that trust gets completely shattered? A brand new survey from Bullyid, Indonesia is digging into this deeply personal and widespread issue of sharing intimate content. And honestly, what it reveals about safety and consent in our digital lives is absolutely staggering. Let's just start with one single, overwhelming number, 99.2%. Yeah, you heard that right. That's how many people in this survey has seen intimate content of others online. That's that's not some small group of us. We're talking about pretty much everyone. So right off the bat, this isn't some niche problem. That number proves this is a near universal part of being online today. So the big question is, who exactly are we talking about here? And what does this all really say about the nature of trust these days? To really get a handle on this data, we've got to know who's telling the story, right? So let's take a look at the faces behind the screen. Okay, so the first thing that just jumps right out is the demographic breakdown. And wow, it's a big one. A massive 94.8% of the people who answered this survey were women. So just keep that in mind as we go. The experiences we're about to explore are overwhelmingly being told from a female perspective. And it's not just women in general, but specifically young women. The biggest group here, between 22 and 26 years old. This tells us that this whole issue is hitting people hard, right as they're trying to figure out early adulthood, relationships, and just who they are online. Okay, this is where we really get to the heart of it. How is this content even being shared in the first place? This section digs into that incredibly fine, often blurry line between trust and coercion. And it's usually happening inside what's supposed to be a safe, romantic relationship. All right, so why are people sending this stuff? Well, the number one reason, by a long shot, over 84%, is simply because their partner asked. But, when you dig a little deeper, it gets complicated. Almost half, about 45%, admit there's this subtle pressure. Like, they're sending it to ensure the other person's interest. And then there's the stuff that isn't subtle at all. Nearly 11% said they were straight up forced or threatened into sending it. And this right here reveals the absolute core paradox of the whole thing. Just look at these two numbers side by side. 90.9% of people have sent intimate content to their partner. Okay, that's a pretty common thing in modern relationships, right? But get this, the exact same percentage, 90.9%, also say they have been forced by that partner to send it. That's just wild. The line isn't just blurred. For a whole lot of people, it seems like it's not even there. So that's why the content gets sent. But what happens next? This is where everything changes. This is the moment that trust just shatters, and the real violation, the real harm begins. Think about this for a second. Nearly half, 49.6% of respondents said that their intimate photos or videos were taken, screenshotted, or recorded without them ever saying it was okay. That's the first fundamental betrayal right there. And it doesn't stop there. Almost immediately after that, for 47.2% of people, so again, almost half, that content was then spread to other people. Again, with zero consent. What was a private act becomes a public violation. But the violation gets even worse. I mean, it goes so much deeper. The content isn't just passed around, it's actively weaponized. For more than a third of these people, their images were doctored, edited with other people's faces or bodies. And for nearly another third, their private content was being traded on online platforms, turned into some kind of sick commodity. So when this kind of awful violation happens, what can you even do? Well, the survey uncovers what you can only call a crisis of reporting. There's this massive gap between people trying to take action themselves and getting any kind of official help. And let's be really clear here. Victims are not just sitting back and letting this happen. The data shows they are taking action right away. You can see here, over 97% directly tell the person to stop. Nearly 97% will report or block the account. They are actively fighting to get back some control. But this is where the system completely breaks down. Even with all those personal efforts, just look at this official reporting gap. Over 60% have never used the formal report features on a platform. And this one is just staggering. 75%, that's 3 out of every 4 people, have never reported the incident to the police. And what that does is create this vicious cycle where the people doing this face almost no consequences. So you have to ask, why? Why is this gap so huge? The report gives us a pretty direct answer. It says that, quote, victims do not have the courage to report or know how to report their cases. So it's not a lack of will. It's a combination of fear and a fundamental lack of knowledge about what to do and who can actually help. So if the ways we respond right now are failing, what about prevention? How do we stop this from even happening in the first place? Well, the report points towards a really clear solution. And that answer is education. But this table shows that the way we teach these critical topics is just all over the place. For both sexual education and digital literacy, fewer than half of the respondents learned about it in school. For everyone else, it's this kind of patchwork of information from parents, from friends, or even from social media itself. There's no consistent, reliable source of information.
And maybe the most alarming number in this whole section is this one, 17.1%. That's almost 1 in 5 respondents who said they had never received any sexual education or digital literacy knowledge from anywhere. They are navigating this incredibly complex and dangerous landscape completely on their own.
And that brings us to the report's core solution. It's not about choosing between sexual education or digital literacy. It's about the urgent need to combine them. These subjects just can't be taught in separate classrooms anymore. Taught together, they can give people the tools to understand consent, risk, and responsibility online. And this is so crucial, not just to avoid becoming victims, but also to avoid becoming perpetrators. And all of this leaves us with one final critical question. Looking at this data, the blurred lines of consent, the profound harm, and the huge gaps in our education, we have to ask ourselves, are we as a society actually learning the right lessons to stay safe in our digital world?